Welcome everyone and congratulations. You applied to attend today and we got some really good reasons why you should all attend. So we're really thrilled that you can be with us here today. There'll probably be more people coming as the day goes along. I am Kathy Rennie. Many of you know me already. If you don't know me, I would like to get to know you, and you should get to know me by participating in the Integrated Marketing Association and the Public Relations League, and you're going to hear more about that. If you're not active in the student clubs, you are leaving a huge networking opportunity on the table. So you're graduating with a degree, but you're not graduating with a network of peers around the world who have been there with you, know you, and are going to support you throughout your whole career. You're also leaving on the table meeting people like our next speaker and our next speaker and all the people that are going to be here with us today, because they're the professional network that you are going to meet. Students always say, there's so much going on at NYU. I don't know what to do. If it says an event is from the Department of Integrated Marketing Communications, your department, it's curated just for you. If it's from the Integrated Marketing Association or the Public Relations League, it's curated just for you. So those are events that are wrapped up with a bow for your career, for networking with peers and networking with professionals. And those are the ones, yeah, go to the French Film Day and this thing and all the other really cool things that NYU has to offer you. But we do events because we heard you. This event is particularly an event that came from you folks. We want more about careers. We want more advice about international students finding jobs. These are the things that are on our minds, and this is what we need. And so this is the day really celebrates you folks and your voice. So the first guest that we have today is someone super special in my life. No matter where you go in the world, you will, throughout every job that you have, and I've had it since I worked in Dairy Queen, 7th grade, till now, every job you find people who are very like-minded, and you instantly are like, we vibe, we get each other, this is great. And I met Lynn Applebaum, I think, in some strange city at a conference, and she met her handing out surveys in a hallway to try to get people to do a survey about diversity in marketing and public relations. And I got the survey. I'm like, where have you been? I need to be with you because this is the problem. And I've been trying to work on the same thing. So literally from that hallway, I think we hugged immediately. And we're like, yes, this is what we're doing. From New York, also teaching, I was teaching in New Jersey. And we've been really tight together. You're also going to find throughout, Lynn is the kind of faculty member who is very student focused. And she has put together finally this great book. It's called Classroom to Workplace, Land Your First Job, First Marketing Communications Job. It's not just Lynn telling the story. She has told the story through the voices of students, in New York City who are diverse and sometimes freaked out about getting their first job and might not have a network and really have to figure out how to do that and make it work. I've read the book. I read it before it was published. It's fantastic. I've already given away to people as gifts. And we have a few here that she's going to distribute later on. Hopefully she can sign them for you. But Lynn is an award-winning educator. She is also a practitioner, which is what we love here at School of Professional Studies. We are scholars and we are practitioners. So we study and we apply. And she's going to today talk a little bit about what she's learned from her students that works. You have won every award there is in education. Yes, you have, like global awards, US awards. Every time there's a top education award in public relations, she's walking across the stage and getting it, and she's beloved because she's so cool, and you'll see why right now. So thank you for being here, and you're going to come back, but thank you. Welcome to your first time here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Kathy. It's a mutual admiration society. I have such esteem for your director and who she is as a professional, as a person. And if you have not had one-on-one FaceTime with Professor Rennie, you owe it to yourself to make an appointment with her and go meet with her and have her get to know who you are and come to her with an agenda so that she can help you. She is an awesome resource. I want to tell you that this is not my first connection with NYU. I'm a giant NYU fan. Why? Because not only is my husband a graduate from the B School, but my younger daughter, Alana, graduated from this SHRP, Science, Health, and Environmental, and Journalism. And Alana is out of work now as a science journalist. So I have such heart for all of you who are looking for jobs because I'm feeling it on the personal front with my own daughter. It is a hard environment. But I also started my PR career at NYU down on West 4th Street doing PR for the Tisch School of the Arts at the law school. And my first boss, Helen, is still my mentor and friend today. Helen Horowitz taught me everything to launch my career in PR. So I feel like NYU was the launch pad of my professional home. I was a music student. I was a classically trained musician who aspired to being a conductor. That didn't happen. And I won't spend too much time talking about myself, but enough to say I found my way into public relations through my love of the arts. And that is a really good thing for all of you to think about as you're trying to craft your course. There's lots of different ways to think about a career, but for me personally, finding my way in by doing PR for a cause or organization that I loved. In this case, it started with music and the arts and grew from there. That was my way into the profession. It's nice to be able to represent and do PR for things you love. We don't always get to do that, but if you're feeling something in your heart that you're really a fan of, don't ignore that voice for yourselves if you're thinking about what might be a good fit for me. So let's get to it. I don't have a lot of time. So I know a lot of you are international students. I taught at City College for 27 years after having a career as a professional. And my newsflash is that while you all, and I recognize, especially in the environment that we're in today as international students, have particular challenges if you're looking to break into the US workforce, which I assume that many of you are. You may have particular needs, but I'm going to tell you that everybody who's in your shoes has their own challenges, and everybody kind of has their own particular menu items that they may be really nervous or concerned about. For me, when I was teaching at City College of New York, all of my students were multicultural. Just about all of them were their first in their family to go to college, so they had no family role models. They didn't have professional role models. They were kind of clueless about a corporate workplace. They felt insecure about their own abilities and whether they deserved to be there. They knew that competition was fierce, and so a lot of people really kind of closed up, and they were even too afraid to take risks. So my job was to work with them. It was my job and privilege to work with them to say, let's try to start with you and look at what you have. That's going to be your fuel to carry you forward. And that's what I want to talk about with you today. I talked to Professor Rennie a little bit before I addressed you today, just to kind of get a sense of who you are. And by the way, you guys can like chime in if you have questions or anything, you know, like, raise your hand and go for it. Here's the deal. If you think that just getting your diploma from NYU that says you have this graduate degree from NYU is enough to land you a job, you are kidding yourselves. It's not. It's a given that you have the credential. And then the question becomes, what are you going to do to manifest yourself as a professional beyond going to classes and doing the papers and getting good grades, yada, yada, yada. Do you guys understand that? That is on you to decide. So the question is, what are you going to do? And Professor Rennie talked about this a little bit. And let me tell you something, you guys. This is probably the most important thing you can do, because it's not only something to put on your resume, but it opens doors for who you might meet and other opportunities for you. So how do you showcase your professional self? You can join a student club. If there's a competition for students competing, we had like this, a communications hack, a 24-hour overnight thing up at City College, and people who participated in that set themselves apart because it showed that they were go-getters, that they wanted something more than just checking the boxes. And that's the world that each of you has to find in your own way. There's no one like magic wand thing I can say to you, go, boom, you got it. That's the nugget of wisdom. The hard thing is that you're going to have to pull it out of yourselves. And that's for you to do that work. So join a student club. There are on-campus opportunities. If Alana, my daughter, as a sure person, networked through a relative to the physics department, she's now doing social media for the physics department. It totally sets her apart in other ways. And that's why I say who you know matters, because who you know might open doors that you had not even anticipated. And the more connections that you are making in the world, the more that increases your opportunities to find a path forward. Sign up for online learning, also like LinkedIn, Google Analytics, Hootsuite, Coursera, you name it. I was talking to Professor Rennie. This is an AI world, right? You guys know it more than I do. I'm terrified of AI. You should not be, because it's the world you're inheriting. You owe it to yourselves to understand not only AI for your own uses, but take a course so that you can understand best practices of AI in marketing, best practices of AI in communications. Don't expect all your classes to give you everything. This is something you have to go for. So pick and choose. When I think about marketing, and I wrote the book with 2020 hindsight. I didn't do any of this stuff when I was looking for a job. I was clueless. I was probably more clueless than any of you are. But we live in a world today where we're so competitive that you want to start with yourself before you're going like, wow, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Start really like get grounded in yourself and think about yourself as a brand. Who am I? What do I have to offer? What are the experiences that I bring to the workplace? Who am I as a person? What do I bring as a person to the workplace? What are my particular professional competencies that I bring in terms of my world knowledge, my personal interests, how I think about things, how I problem solve? Again, this goes beyond your classwork into the person that you are and how you manifest yourself in the world. So I used to do this exercise with students because we would start and I would say like, yeah, like tell me 3 things that are really awesome about yourself. And people would start to cry in my office. Literally, I used to keep a box of tissues. They would start to cry. And we like cried together. And they were like, crying. I'm like, what do you got? I got nothing. 3 things? Is there 1? And it touched me so much because the level of insecurity was so profound that they could not find something that they could celebrate within themselves. I have moments like that now still, but one of the things I would encourage you to do is get really quiet and go think about the things that you celebrate about yourself, who you are, what your professional competencies are. And I always did this exercise and I would say like, put it inside of yourself, like just like so it's physically a part of you. And that way, when you're talking about yourself, You have a physical place that you could go to. I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this, and you know it. Do you guys, can you kind of understand what I'm talking about? Like, this is too weird? No? You got it, okay then. So I'm serious about it, is like take ownership of who you are and what you have as a person, beyond even talking about yourself as a professional. Go like celebrate who you are, because that's gonna like be your money in the bank for when you have to start putting yourself out in the world. Weaknesses, everybody has them. If there's something that you're totally freaked out about yourself and going like, oh, I like my English grammar like sucks, or oh, there's technology for that, or something that, you know, I like suck at Excel, I'm so bad at Excel. It's like, you need Excel in the world today. It's like, if you have a competency that you know you're lacking in, now's the time to try to address it. You don't have to fix it, but just acknowledge it and go like, maybe you need to work on this, and maybe that's where you take the course. Look at the opportunities in the world. It's a hard world right now. So opportunities, you all know this from marketing, is what's out there in the world, in the ethos, in the marketplace, Sue, that I can benefit from. Like, what are the industries that, you know, really are sort of drawing people and attracting people right now? Because maybe it's something I hadn't thought about before, but if I stop to think about it, maybe it's something where I could plug into that. At the same time, obviously, we have to think about threats. What's happening in the global marketplace that could work against me? Well, obviously, there's an administration right now that's very hostile to immigrants and diversity. So something to be aware of, but it doesn't mean that it is a death knell for anything that you want to do. So be realistic about it, be aware of it, but look for ways that you're going to work around for it. But you can't just pretend like it doesn't exist, because it's a hard world right now. The other things I would say is look at the barriers that are stopping you. So I referenced before my own students who just felt so insecure, so many of them, they were just so uncertain and so insecure that they did nothing. They took no action because they were too afraid to take action. So I would say if any of you are feeling that a little bit, try to put that aside, be accepting of yourself. I'm not going to say don't be afraid. You can be nervous about it, but take action anyway. Can you do that? Can you do that? You can do that, right? When I wish I knew when I was your age, I wish I knew I had more power than I thought, than I ever gave myself credit for. I thought I was such a little peon, no one would wanna talk to me, but I've come to realize, especially in this industry, it's an industry where people are very generous and people wanna help other people. And if you ask for help, more often than not, you're gonna get it. You're always gonna meet people who are jerks in the world. Don't let the jerks define you. They just sort of put them aside and move on. But the power that you have, the action that you can take now it's all about what you do. Do not wait for the world to come to you to make opportunities for you. Professor Rennie talked about opportunities that they're offering here. She is creating those opportunities. But the fact that you're all sitting here and you went to the trouble to apply to be here for this moment already tells me that you understand what that means. You are taking action to manifest yourself in a really important way in the world, and that's what's going to carry you forward. Don't let your fear and uncertainty and insecurity stop you. You can feel it, you can experience it, but then do it anyway. Even if you're nervous about failing. And I always say, take initiative and risks, even if you're uncertain. I was somebody who was terrified of rejection. Terrified. I was a wilting flower from fearing rejection. And you know what? Rejection builds resilience. They talk about building a tough skin. And to work in this industry, you have to have a tough skin. You have to be, have your armor on. Which only comes with time, but it's better to try better to try and experience rejection and learn from that than not to try at all. So I would say if any of you are kind of playing things really close to the chest and not going for things and sort of going outside of your comfort zone, go outside your comfort zone, or as I said, and this is true for lifelong learning, it's where learning happens, is learning happens in the uncomfortable place. It's like that place is like, yeah, I really suck at this. And like, I take piano and I have a teacher who decimates me every goddamn week. I've been playing my entire life. And it's like, oh God. And I know if I'm getting decimated, that when I go back and do the work, that's where the learning comes. So this idea of getting comfortable with uncomfortable, especially in the world today, it is moving so crazy fast. Like, we constantly have to be adapting. And if we're like kind of in a fetal position emotionally, that's not going to be good. Go for your dreams and passions. You know, it's like a lot of people want to get into fashion and sports and music, and those are like the sexy things. Those are good. Those are good. But like, don't rule out other things. Be realistic, because you know, especially in this environment, look at where the opportunities are, but do pursue your dreams. You owe that to yourself. Be willing to pivot when opportunities come your way. I'll tell you a story from my NYU days when I worked here. Following me, there was a guy who came to work in the press office, Arnett, who later went on to work for ABC News. And like 12 years after I had met Arnett, he called me at another job I had. He goes, and by now he's at ABC News, and he goes, hey, NBC News is looking for a PR person to do PR for today's show. You want the job? And I'm like, why would they hire me? And it was like, I'm going to put in a good word for you. I thought there was no way that NBC News would hire me. And they did. And it all came from a network, from my past. It came from opportunities. If somebody said to me, Lynn, you're going to work for the Today Show sometime, I would go like, what are you smoking? But an opportunity came my way, and it was awesome, great, and very fun and hard. Focus, this is really important for you guys. Focus on what you can do for the employer, not for what employers can do for you. A lot of people starting out are thinking like, I'm excited about this, and I'm really excited about this, and I love fashion, and I love music, and I love technology, and I want to save the environment, and I want to do this, me. And guess what? Nobody cares. They don't care. What they care about is, what are the skills you're bringing? What's the knowledge you're bringing? What's the experience you're bringing? What's your thinking that you're bringing to the workplace that can help me, the employer, get the best job done that I need? It's what you can do for them, not what they can do for you. So as you're thinking about your interviews and your cover letters and every resume you write, be thinking about the person reading this, or the AI spider bot reading it, and what you're showcasing about yourself that speaks to their needs, not your interests. You guys understand that? That's a very different perspective. And I always say, like, what you think you're destined to do may not be what you're destined to do. I say that as somebody with many more years than you guys, but just be open, because life does not go like this. Life goes like this. And it's really hard to accept that when you're starting out, because you kind of just want the next thing to work out. So just be kind to yourselves and understand it's going to be kind of like one of those journeys. Networking, especially in this world, it is a who you know world. The more people you meet, the more seeds you sow, the more likely it is you're going to land a job. I always tell people I got my husband through networking. I didn't go looking for him, but he had a friend from one of my former jobs, and I took the NBC job because I was like single and like 36. And I thought like, nah, I might as well just work. No one's ever going to get married. And 1 month into NBC, I got a call from somebody who knew 5 years earlier, not a friend, a work colleague who said, there's somebody I want you to meet. Just saying, you never know. So your job, you guys should be going to your campus career office. You should be talking to guest speakers like me. You should be making personal connections, industry pros. You should be making a list of everybody you know. And then you're going to go to them and not say like, you have a job, you have a job, you have a job. No, you're just going to build a relationship with them. You're going to get to know them. It's not transactional for what you can do for me. You're going to learn about them. You're going to ask them more, because then that is a way of building a relationship. And that's how when something comes along, then they're going to think of you. Mentors, mentor, find a mentor. Find a professor who knows your work, ask them to be your mentor. But if you do that, make sure you have an objective. So they go like, how do you want me to mentor you? You better have an answer. So if you're going to find a mentor, know what you want from that person. It could be short-term goals. It could be skill specific. If you want to work on your interview skills, if you want help on your resume, if you want help on creating a list of jobs, opportunities, whatever it is, how give you honest feedback on how you present as a person. Know what you want from them. So find a mentor. I'll give you an example. I was standing in line. I was with the Co-op Apprentice Program, and we were waiting in line to go inside. This was their 10-year anniversary. And one of the women who went from the co-op program, it's in digital marketing, we're sitting outside. She goes, I can't find a job. I can't find a job. I just don't know what to do. I can't find a job. And I'm like, well, do you have a mentor? And she said no. And then there was another woman from the Co-op Apprentice Program who was like she was her like supervisor in the cohort. And I'm going like, well, why don't you ask her? It's like she was right there. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to find people already in your circle. It could be a colleague, it could be, a professor, whatever. But find a mentor now and use them. Do your homework before meeting your mentor. As I said before, understand your objectives. This is also your time to amp up your LinkedIn by looking to connect with people. But you know what you can do? You can build your professional brand on LinkedIn by finding an industry that you care about. And then you can share posts. You can share newspaper articles on your LinkedIn or trade publication, trend stories on your LinkedIn, so that you become somebody that people understand is taking initiative as you post information that could benefit others. It's not just, I'm on LinkedIn to get a job. It's like, what am I contributing to the community by showcasing my level of engagement, my expertise, my knowledge, the research I've done for others as well. I suggest you make a strategic plan. You should research companies, agencies. You might want to start with international companies, if you're from a particular country, and you might want to look at international companies that have a home base in your home country that also have opportunities here. Does anybody know about Winmo, W-I-N-M-O, winmo.com? That's a really great place to find a list of holding companies, and that that just opens up sort of a very targeted network of international holding companies and agencies that might be of value to you as you consider where you're going to look. LinkedIn, Google, Indeed. Always check out company LinkedIn postings now. As you probably know, there's a lot of ghost postings out there now, and people will post things that are bogus, and they do this for a variety of reasons. So it's always good to go to a company, the website itself, and look at their job board and see what they're looking at. Don't overlook summer programs and internships, even for graduate students, like multicultural internship program, IRTS Foundation. They could lead to full color jobs. Add color is really good. Make a list of your target companies in rank order in rank order. Research them, because you can also build relationships with the HR people from these companies. You can reach out to them on LinkedIn and try to build a relationship with them. If you send, a note that maybe even you want to do an informational interview with somebody, if you have a substantive reason that shows why you're a fan of a particular company, that's within your power to do. And then share your network and your plan with your mentor for feedback and to get their connections. Make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. I just say for resume, always start with your core qualifications. Don't start with your NYU degree. Core qualifications telegraph to somebody hiring what you bring to them. Here's what I got. Here's who I am. So start with your core qualifications in terms of what you offer, high level, and then you can even say what your goal is. Make sure you list all your core skills, keep your professional skills going. I don't like listing soft skills in a resume. Keywords, really important as well. Same thing for your cover letters. You're gonna have to tailor every resume and cover letter more to the job you're applying for because they're using AI increasingly for screening. So keywords are more important than ever. My parting thought is it's okay not to know everything for you to feel confident, but don't say no to opportunities that you could take aware advantage of now to become your best professional self. That's all about who you are and what you bring as you chart your own course, because ultimately you're the one that's gonna make that happen. So this is my book. Who has questions? Anybody have questions? Questions? No questions? Wow, I'm good.
You're really good.
Wow. Well, okay, then you can have a free-for-all for like the book grab, because I'm not picking unless somebody else wants to tell me how I'm gonna do it. So Professor Rennie has copies of this book, so I'm just gonna let you kind of do a free-for-all, but this is the book I wrote that has everything I talked about here is in it, and plus how to succeed on your job. Like, what does it take when you actually get to a job? This is me. I'm Lynn_Applebaum. I'm at hotmail.com. And if anybody wants to write to me afterwards and follow up and ask a question or build a relationship, I invite you to do that. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you're invited to do that as well. And thank you, NYU. Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. I'm
Oh,
not,
you can talk.
I'm not searching for the job, but I have a question for you. And that it is about managing anxiety when you are in the job.
Managing anxiety on the job?
No, you are in the job search.
Oh, on the job search, managing anxiety.
Because one of the things I've been noticing, especially lately, is students sending a large number of resumes and applications and getting no responses, right?
Yeah.
So then what's happening is that you start feeling anxious, like, okay, it's me.
Yeah.
What is happening? So what are the tools that students can have to manage that situation that can happen?
Job hunting is really, I'm going through this with Alana, with my younger daughter now. And she's out of work. She doesn't even get to say she's a student. She's just like, it's hard and it takes a toll on your self-esteem. I think the best thing you can do for yourself, if you're feeling bad, is take a step to do something every day. Do something little. Post on LinkedIn. Reach out to your network. Grab a coffee with a friend. Go meet with a professor. Like, do something affirming that, even if it's to make you feel better. I mean, anxiety is anxiety, but I think the antidote to anxiety is action. And it doesn't have to be big action. I always told people my model for life are like little pebbles in the water. I'm like not the big boulder. I'm not the boulder person. I'm like, you put little pebbles in the water and you keep putting in little pebbles. And after you keep putting in a lot of little pebbles, those ripples start to happen. All I can tell you is what my experience was. And I didn't have anybody do anything for me. I had to find my own way. So I know what it feels like. And that's the best I can tell you is if you're feeling bad, feel bad, feel bad, go feel bad. And then go do something to help yourself by either reaching out to a friend, do a networking thing, go talk to a professor, say, what's one thing I can do today? What's one productive thing? Nobody has any guarantees in life. I wish I could promise you all the job of your dreams. I wish I could promise that. It's a hard world right now. It's really hard. And all you can do is the best you can do. That's all you've got. Plus your network. And that's why I think, especially to your point, with all of the general rejections that we get, that's why to me, like personal connections are everything. That's for me, it's like what saves me when things are getting tough. I don't, that's the best I can say.
Dr. Rennie, and I'm the chair, hi everybody, of the Integrated Marketing Communications Department, under which Public PR, CC, and IM exist. Sometimes students are like, oh, you're the chair of IM&C, so I'm a PR student, so you're not, I'm like, no. It's the Integrated Marketing Communications Department, that's the umbrella, and underneath there's the Public Relations and Corporate Comm, the Integrated Marketing Communication, and the Executive Program for people with 8+ years of experience. I said this last time when we first opened, if you were here, you're gonna hear it again. One of the key parts of your career and growth and networking ability are our student clubs. Woo! Yes. I'm doing a national research, and actually, Cindy, you've helped me a lot with the content analysis of graduate programs. No graduate programs have clubs, especially in public relations and marketing, very few. So it's very, very rare that graduate programs have clubs. What clubs are your networking, your peer-to-peer networks that you can start networking now. Just what you heard folks who were here for Lynn's conversation. They allow you to start your networking now. The people that you're sitting in classrooms with are going to people who can hire you, who can tell you about jobs. So if I haven't seen you at club stuff, you are leaving, first of all, so much fun, and so much learning and networking. And so I have two representatives here of our fabulous clubs. Jack's going to tell you a little bit about the IMA. You should immediately connect with them on Insta and LinkedIn, as well as the department. But Jack, tell us a little bit about IMA, and then Cindy's going to tell us a little bit about the Public Relations League.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jack. I'm the secretary of IMA. Just quick bit. I'm going to echo what Dr. Rennie has said. IMA is probably the biggest influence that, if you don't go to any events, you are missing out, because we have so many events for networking, social mixers to get to know each other. And Dr. Rennie is correct. The people, your classmates, maybe the people who are hiring you or not. And this goes for all students, international and domestic. I was born and raised in New York City, but IMA it was literally a starting point of when my career pretty much launched. After that, before that, I was not doing much, a lot of side jobs, but now I have internships and IMA. And so please come connect with me if you want to join IMA. We have a really big event working with the amazing Dr. Rennie called the IMA Summit. Basically, a whole culmination of everything you need to know in the marketing industry about upcoming trends, what HR people look for in their employees. And it'll be such a bad idea for you guys to miss out. So nice to meet you again. I'm Jack. It's be mid-April.
Mid-April, it's
yeah.
gonna be at Kimmel. It's a big deal. So if you're in public relations, or it's really one of the biggest. It's a summit that every year that the IMA has put on. So for years.
And this will be the first time actually that will be in person.
Well, it's going back. Before COVID, it actually
Yeah.
started was
Yeah.
in person, and now we're going back
to person.
Yeah, and it's time. It's overtime.
And I'm Sydney, and I am the treasurer of the Public Relations League, or PRL. It's actually also the PRSA student chapter of NYU also. And speaking of networking events and meeting your peers, tomorrow we actually have an event. Danny, this vice president, tell us where it is.
At Sugar Mouse, and it is a networking event with the MSSA, and it's going to be super fun.
So not only do you get to meet PR students, you also get to meet MSSA. Do they have to sign up on Engage?
Yeah, RSVP, and then you can come on in, and you have to be over 21.
Oh yeah, you have to be over 21 at Santa Bar, so even more fun.
Very cool place. I
I'll be
interned there. So, very cool place.
At Sugar Mouse?
Yeah, that's how I got Jay connected with me. for you.
Wow, family.
So it's all connected, and you know, the reason why we have integrated marketing and public relations and corporate comm in one department is because it's so integrated, you know that. All your classes are really integrated. You work with marketing and public relations people all the time, so you need to, that's the reason why they're in one department, and that's the reason why the groups work so closely together. You just had that great event together last week, which was at the Peso event.
Yeah.
Fantastic. If you weren't there, you missed the standing room only event. That was really super good. Sydney is now going to, in her leadership role, also be the person who's interviewing our first panel. So I'm going to give it back to Sydney and welcome all you amazing people. Did you miss us? You're back. So it's great to have you back. So Sydney, take it away. Thanks.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second part of our career day, the alumni panel for IM&C Career Day. My name is Sydney, as I said before, and I'm a PRCC student. And I'm thrilled to be moderating this discussion with a variety of our esteemed alumni. And they will be sharing their career journeys, industry insights, advice for all of us as we are preparing either this year or next year to enter the job market. A huge thank you to them for being here and to being so open to share with us. So this session is also meant to be interactive. At the end, we'll leave time for other Q&As that anyone has and any pressing questions. So to start, I would love if we start with Leanna, we go through and say your name, where do you work, when you graduated, and what program you graduated from.
Yeah, hi, I'm Liana. I am fresh out of the grad program, literally December. So very fresh insights, but out of undergrad for longer than that. And I am currently working at a design and storytelling agency called Talisman. I'm freelancing for them and I'm also most of the time, and I also am recently freelancing for a B2B platform called Boulevard and writing some copy for them. So that's what I'm doing.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessie. I graduated a long time ago, 2018. And I was in the PR program with Ruby, my husband. And I now work full-time at a PR agency that's called the Pollard Group. We are a very small agency. We have one office here, another office in Los Angeles. I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, my name's Ruby. I graduated same class as Jessie, 2018, and I work in my own agency called Burson Global. Started it in 2020, but very small, very nimble teams. Office in Roku.
Hi, I'm Chris. I graduated PR program last year in summer, so I'm very fresh out of it. And I currently work in a PR agency called Archetype. We are a pretty big team. It's not like the most top-notch, but we have offices in multiple countries. But I really enjoy my time in the PR industry. It just got started. And I also volunteer at a nonprofit organization called Amateur Astronomers Association. It's based in New York.
Hi everyone, my name is Maggie, and I also graduated just last summer. I was in PR program, same with Chris. And I'm now working at a nonprofit organization called Civic Influencers. And my role is a stakeholder engagement coordinator. Doing something like fundraising and donors communication, and that's all about me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So many of us who are still in the program are looking for ways to kind of maximize our time here. Looking back, what should students like us be doing now to set themselves up for success?
Yeah, I guess I should also mention I was the IM program, so marketing, integrated marketing. Yeah, with some of these guys here. So, well, I guess I can talk about a little about my journey. In my first semester, two incredible people came and spoke in my campaign one class, and I'm working for both of them now. So I literally just went up afterwards, and I loved both of what they were talking about. I was super interested in their work. Asked for their emails and basically just haggled them for months. And specifically for Talisman, I started working with them last summer. So it's been almost 10 months. And I was doing both at the same time for about 6 months of the program because I switched through summer to graduate in under a year and a half. So that was a lot of juggling, but it was a great experience just to, feel like I really valued what they were building, and obviously can get more into that, but they didn't have any sort of hiring availability. It's a very small team as well. We work remotely across 6 countries around the world. So really, really fun to kind of pass the baton around and work on projects really quickly. And he was like, well, we can create an internship program for you, I guess. And it became such a great fit that he promoted me and upped my rate in the fall. And now I'm pretty much full-time with them, which is really awesome. And I was looking for something else on the side as I had a few extra hours. So I was just scratching my brain literally 2 weeks ago and was like, oh, what about that other guy? Reached out to him and in an hour and a half had another freelance gig. So it's really all about connections because they met you in person and they know that you are capable and you went up and shook their hand and you just kept in touch with them over a few months. You don't need to interview most of the time, especially for a freelance situation. So definitely recommend freelancing, especially to start. I don't know, I'm sure other people might have different opinions, but I found that to be more fruitful right now, especially with the job market. Just putting feelers out and getting involved with different companies, but I'll pass it off.
Yeah, as an international student, freelancing is an option for me, unfortunately. But I started at my company, actually, just like Liana, as an intern. So I found this internship opportunity on Handshake. I believe you also have access to that platform as well. So I started my internship at this agency, and when I was graduating, they said, can't support you in the lottery. So I had to go job hunting, found another job at a smaller international agency, which is kind of like a startup. Fortunately, they supported me with the H-1B process. It was a long story that you don't want to hear about, but I went through that. And after 3 years, I saw on LinkedIn that this agency that I'm working right now, they were hiring for a role in New York City. And actually it was the boss, the owner of the agency reaching out to me on LinkedIn asking, are you interested in coming back? So I guess they knew me and they were happy to bring me back to the agency. And they said, since you have the work visa, we're happy to handle the transfer for you. So just information for you guys is that some companies may not support you with the lottery, but if you have that already, they might be able to support you with the transfer. So there's no waiting time, no luck involved, just an application. Yeah, and that's my journey.
Wow.
Yeah. I think Jessie is absolutely on point about the international student journey. I was an international student myself. I think if there was one thing that I wish that I had done when I was a student, I wish that when I was a student, for all the companies that I see a opening or I see a potential of joining, I would really go into coffee chat with people in it. Because I think finding out about the company culture straight up, interview them instead of just make it a one-way interview is something that's super important to do, because you definitely want to be in an environment, whether it's a bigger team, it's a smaller team, you want to know what to expect when you go in, and if you can handle it, if they are a good fit for you. So getting it not saying like there's right or wrong, but getting it sort of on the right track at the first goal really saves a lot of time and energy. And for international students, we didn't really have a lot of choice because a lot of the companies didn't choose to sponsor. But some companies, even on paper, they choose not to put themselves up over there to say I'm open to sponsor, but if you can show them that your unique capabilities are going to bring them value in the long run, like that's going to I guess give them more incentive to listen to you, to get to know you as a person. That really opens doors.
Yeah, so my point is, it's actually like heavily resonated to what all of you have mentioned. Especially, I'm so sorry, what's your name?
Liana.
Liana, yes. Speaking of internship, I think there's nothing more important than internship, or like nothing more important than the work experience to start. Because in this job market, no matter how entry level you are, they all want you to have some kind of experience. And that is, I don't know, that's kind of messed up that they want us to have experience when nobody can give us that experience. But what I want to say is, if this is your first year of master's program and you still have a year or something to go, definitely start looking for internship right now. Because when I was in my first year of master's, I secured an internship for that summer, and there was supposed to be like a really good chance of me continuing working with them. It didn't work out in the end, but that was because of their financial reasons. But besides that, that work experience, like the tools that I learned to use in that process, the multiple different levels of communications and the different connections I made with the clients, it was invaluable. Yeah, and I was an international student as well, but like I no longer was in an immigration process. I would say even some of us don't need sponsorship. I still have to say this is a difficult job market right now. Yeah, it is for everyone. So we probably need to get prepared. Yeah.
So I think my journey is a bit different with everyone here, but I can also like relate with them. So my experience is, first, I need to say, of course, internship is very important, but because I only came to the States for the master degree, so the first year when I'm in the States, it was really tough for me. So I was trying a bit, I tried a bit in looking for internship, but at that time I was not that like determined to stay in the States. Like my determination was not that strong. So I guess I didn't try very hard to get it. So of course I cannot get it. And then the first step I think I took to find a job in the States was I think it's September 2023. There was a big career fair. It's like a whole school for whole NYU. And I think it's after the first in-person career fair after pandemic. I lined there for 2 hours to get in. I think if anyone have been there, you can literally remember how messy it was. So at that time, I even wasn't able to introduce myself properly to those employers that I wanted to talk to, because I was not that confident in myself, in my resume, and even in my English. And but as time went, I applied a lot of jobs. I think the first important thing I want to say here is to figure out what's the direction you want to work on. You need to be niche enough to focus on the direction that your career path. Still remember, I have this conversation with my classmate, which is also my friend sitting over there, Winston. So at the very beginning, he asked me, so Maggie, what do you want to focus on in your job application? I literally said, I think I can do everything related with PR and communication. And I thought it would be easier for me to do that, but actually it's actually more difficult, because both yourself and the employer, they won't be able to figure out what you really want to do, what you really match to work as. So later on, I figured out I might want to do something like a nonprofit. To be honest, one of the reasons is people say nonprofit easy to get your working visa because I'm also international student. But as time goes, I figure out, yeah, I for real like interested in this. So the first thing I did is to volunteer in different nonprofit organizations because it's hard for me to find internship, but volunteer activities might still can add some credit for you. So that's the first thing I did. And then through some connection, I got an internship in a startup tech company. Even it's a tech and it's a startup, but what I did is help them to secure a 100K kind of like pre-seed funding for them from some like virtual investing companies. And then I still cannot find a job. At that time, it was last year's August. So what I did is I started looking for some volunteer job, which can at least help me to stop my OPT unemployment date. So I did that volunteer job for a month. And I think that job, because it's directly related with fundraising, so that helped me to get the job I'm working now. So so in a word, I agree with everyone said that experience and internship is really matter because they want to see that you had a bit, maybe they don't want to see that you have a very great experience in it, but they want to see that you're willing to learn. They want to see your potential. So I think no matter what phase you're now in, just start looking for internship as soon as possible. If you cannot, working as some unpaid job might also be an option. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. As an international student myself, it's amazing to be able to hear from newer graduates and more seasoned international student graduates about their experience. Is there any advice that you could give us? I know we talked about some of the challenges, but is there any way that we could be positioning ourselves in giving our unique perspective to employers as we are international students? Is there any advice you have for any of the other international students?
Well, I can't speak as being an international student now. However, I am in the process of applying to move to London through the HPI visa. So I literally just went downtown to get my fingerprints and photo taken today. So I'm sending in my passport tomorrow. I'll be landlocked until I get it back. And that's like very much happening. So if you don't know about that, please come talk to me because it's a really awesome opportunity that is available for NYU students. So if you're interested in moving to the UK. But yes, I guess I will be international soon. And what I started doing last year is reaching out to a lot of different international agencies just to also plant seeds because you never know, like we all have been mentioning, the market is a bit wonky right now. So I don't know if these jobs are going to be secure. I'm just keeping my options open and definitely want to plant seeds in the UK as well when I get there. So I have a bunch of connections through LinkedIn that I've already had coffee chats with last summer, knowing that I wanted to make this happen this year. Have recruiters to reach out to and connect with to meet up for coffee. I have friends who live there as well, so that makes it a little easier. But definitely just putting your feelers out, and like we were just talking about LinkedIn, and just like if you see on your connections, like, oh, they went to NYU, or like 8 people or even 2 people are connected, like, just be like, hey, I'm in NYU, like, I'd love to chat. Might not get any bites back, but you might get some, and that will lead to someone else, and warm connection is better than cold. So definitely that's kind of what I've been doing on the international front.
Yeah, talking about using the alumni network, actually, I didn't talk about my first job. I found my first job by interviewing actually first for an internship opportunity at an agency that was kind of larger. The person who interviewed me, he also graduated from SPS, but he was older, and he rejected me, unfortunately. But after a few months, he told me that I'm starting my own company. Would you like to join? So fortunately, he's from China too, so he knew that I need a visa. And he was happy to support. That was how I found my first job. I know I was lucky, but I guess the key takeaway here is to use the alumni network and really, like Liana said, reach out to people. People are happy to help, especially if you ask them and mention that you're from NYU, from SPS too. They will try to look for ways to help you. And not necessarily offering your job right away, but who knows, right? They may just leave the company and start their own business and they're looking for people, just like how I started. So sharing this as a food of thoughts.
Thank you.
I don't know. I would love to share what you two had to say before I chime in, if that's okay.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I guess I want to make a point since we have been talking about like the process of getting an internship, getting a job. So I would like to touch on what happens after you get an internship. So because we mentioned earlier how important it is, and as a matter of fact, to be born in China and move to the US, there are a lot of us, to be honest. And after a while of like, of course, you're going to introduce yourself as Chinese to an employer, and they're going to ask you, do you speak another language? Are you able to understand another language? And get our second or third language to use is pretty good. There is a great chance that adds our values to the internship, to the job itself, because cultural diversity, I think that fades away after a while. Like they lose interest on that after you work for them for a while. So for example, in the agency that I intern for, as well as the agency that I work for right now, there are a few cases that we need to like read some regulation documents in Chinese, and I was able to help them out to like, instead of having them use the translation. Those are the real life use cases of us understanding another language. So if you understand another language, that's an asset, and please make sure to use that in your job. And another one, this might be a hot take. If time allows and finance allows, please travel during the period of like this program, because as a matter of fact, we know like we don't have classes every single day. If you travel domestically, you might discover cities and states that fits your vibe better. You know, there might be like some job opportunities in some states and cities that you could be interested in, but you were kind of afraid to go to because you have not been to that place. That place is a total strange place for you. But if you have experience of traveling, you've been there, you have some more expectations, and that makes your eyes open wider. And also for international students specifically, if you can travel to some other countries, I believe we are the citizen of the world, right? So like we immigrated from China to the US, from your home country to the US, you have seen the world a little bit. So if there are opportunities in other countries that are opening for you, might be a better paid job, that could be an option. Just as a plan B. Yeah.
So for me, I might have a bit different viewpoint with them because I actually didn't see any benefit during my job hunting process as someone international, to be honest, because a lot of company, they want someone maybe who can speak Spanish or French. That's that's my feelings from my job hunting experience. But they do care about multicultural things, so we can use that to like position us a bit. But I mean, maybe not a lot. It depends on what direction, what career you want to choose. For example, the nonprofit I'm working now, they care a lot about multicultural background. They care a lot about immigrants because we are working on some civic engagement and civil rights. So those kind of organizations or companies, they will care about, but some of them, they won't care a lot. During the job hunting, I feel like we should not think ourselves as someone international, which will maybe put you into a disadvantaged position because they will think, oh, you're from another country, you just come here for a few years, maybe you're not a good choice for us. We want someone who can fit our culture with. We want someone who can, just like a good part of us, make you that you will not feel like you're kind of like alien from us. So in the job hunting process, I think everyone should be confident with your ability, no matter your language or your, like as from someone international, no matter your language or your professional skills, that you can compete. You're like capable enough to compete with locals, with those citizens, with those people who have citizenships. So yes, being confident and keeping on trying, I think those are two important things as international student. I also got be rejected by a lot of organizations after they got to know that I need working visa. I need working with visa sponsorship. They directly reject me. Some of them, they even say, oh, if your visa status change in the future, you can reach out us again and we might offer you an opportunity to have an interview, which is, I don't know, it sounds really ridiculous for me. So yes, just keep on trying and being confident with yourself. There, someone will like look into your abilities and they will take you. Cause guys, I've applied for 1,200 jobs.
Wow.
So I think I'm I'm eligible to say that. I've like
Are you scared me that away?
no, like the day when I calculated, because I will report every company, every job position I applied in my like memo on my phone, and because I applied basically on nonprofit, so I need to write cover letter for each position I wanted to apply. So I calculated that day, I saw it, oh my God, it's more than, I thought it was just like few hundred, but I saw it's more than 1,000. I was like, wow. And last summer, I almost applied like 30 to 50 jobs every day. So I think this building connections is very important, but I think try your best to apply more is also important, because in this way, you're trying your best to secure more opportunities to get a job. You just need one job, but you need to, apply more.
So I know that a big common theme that you guys have been saying, and also that our professors tell us, is networking is everything. So how have you guys used networking strategies? What worked for you? I know a lot of people said LinkedIn. Have you utilized the NYU network? What advice would you give people looking for jobs in tips and tricks that worked for them, for you guys? And if anyone is a bit nervous about sending that cold LinkedIn message, like any motivational advice you could give us?
Okay. I think for code messaging, the trick that I tell myself, because I do need to code message people a lot of time, is just close your eyes, don't think about it, just hit send. That's it. Like, people are going to say no matter what you say, and someone will say yes. You grab those opportunities, you really showcase yourself to the yeses, and something is going to lead to another. That's the only thing that matters. And I think going back to the international student question, I personally, sorry, just distracting a little bit over here from the original question. I actually found being an international student really helpful, or having an international background really helpful. But it's not until after I started to work in the field. So I share the same experience. My work visa situation really restricted the kind of jobs I could apply to, the kind of companies that would literally would even look at my resume. It's really difficult. But when I started to work in the field, I first started in a PR agency, and then I founded my own agency that does both PR and marketing together, so more integrated. But in the PR agency, I'm personally in the hospitality industry, especially working with food and restaurants. And something really magical happened when I started working with immigrant owners or global brands who are with my cultural identity. So when I started to work with Chinese restaurants or Chinese brands whose owner might only speak Chinese, they're looking to localize here. I'm one of the few people, few dozens of people in the city who can't tell them what to do. basically. And I also am one of the few dozen people who are in the city, in the space currently, very actively managing media relations with food editors, telling them what's authentic, what's hot in the restaurant scene for Chinese food. So I automatically became this niche, like authority almost, not really,
Yes,
but
you are.
Yes.
just because I knew, just because the environment that I grew up in, the school experience that I had over here, so I'm multicultural. Like more than just language, I know the stuff that I know, and no other people can describe the food better than I could, because I lived it, I tasted it, I know the difference, right? And when I started working, or when I started this agency, one of the key factors that we're looking for in our candidates is if they have a multicultural background. Because the goal of this agency that we're trying to do, because there's so many amazing agencies out there, and I'm amazed by all the great works every single day. But I feel like there are a few agencies who are already doing this, but I want to kind of like envision a team where all the cultures that can come together, because America is such a big melting pot. When any given business, any given brands, they want to target a community. When they're talking about, I want to target a certain kind of people, we're talking about customer segmentations, right? What ethnicity are they? What age are they? Household income. But a very, very significantly impactful thing is what channel they're on. And we all know this, if you have international background, we are on different channels. Not everybody is on Instagram, not everybody is on TikTok. We're in our own communities. I need to know how to get to them. I need to know what message gets to them. So I need the people who understand the culture to tell me what to do. So that's, I think being international is super powerful.
Yeah.
The only thing that's stopping employers from hiring is the uncertainty of whether you will get the visa or not.
Yeah.
And if you get the visa under their watch, will you stay with them? That's the only thing. Just show them that, I will try my best to get the visa. I can't control the lottery process, but I'll try my best. If I can't get the visa to this year, even though I only have maybe like 1 year or 3 years, depends on if you have a procedure. If I can't get it within this period, I'll think of other ways. This is what I want to do. This is the job that matters. Tell them that, they'll consider.
Thank you so much. If any of you want to answer the question about networking before we pivot to the last question, because I'm sure everyone else has questions they'd love to ask, love to hear.
I'll mention something quick.
No.
Okay. Something quick about networking. I think NYU is a phenomenal resource because I work in an agency right now that really focuses on tech. And I also work for a non-profit organization that's very scientific. So I kind of position myself as like someone being nerdy and not very good at keeping up with the communications. And I train myself to do it in public relations field, but I still feel like I am a little bit afraid of sending like cold messages on LinkedIn or something. And yeah, or even sometimes some people would prefer us to give them a call directly if they want to make a connection. I am deadly afraid of that. And it's okay. I think it's okay. The thing is, you just need to take a little time to conquer that fear. And on the other side, if you feel like it's just too much for you to handle, use the resources on campus. Use the resources from professors. Professor Catherine Metcalf that invited me and Maggie here, she helped me so much. And also your classmates, right? Because we are in a master's program and a lot of us have had work experience before, some of them in New York City. And your classmates might be able to introduce you to opportunities that you have not foreseen before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Chris, you're getting on to my next question. I was going to, so maybe this could be the perfect final pivot if you want to answer that networking question, but adding on to that, do any of you want to share experiences of either you having a mentor who you go to for advice, peer-to-peer mentorship? Do you have a mentee, and how has that person or those people supported you post-grad and during graduation and during your career search? Maybe Chris, you can just wrap that up for me.
Sure, yeah, real quick. So shout out to Professor Catherine Metcalf for like giving me so many opportunities to talk to like the people with real talents in the industry and help me try to like secure a job opportunity at that time. And I actually met with her a couple of weeks ago, and we still keep in touch. And I feel like, professors are those people who have the knowledge and have the work experience in the industry, so they are like extremely valuable. Also, another professor that I would like to mention is Professor Alan Mogul, and he is amazing. He is also one of the best professors, and he's one of those people that gives you like a lot of calm in your heart. Like when you have doubts, when you have questions about future planning, he's the right person to reach out to. So I believe there are still so many other great professors in NYU that you are experiencing right now in your classes. So treasure them, please.
Yeah, I think you like quick tidbits, but back to like the last question and the new question. First, to address your new question, I think right now my mentor is actually my boss, which is really incredible because I really haven't had that before. And what's really cool is that like on the weekends or off hours, like I'm working on rebuilding my website, just like updating my copy to be more like I graduated from a master's, I have expertise to share. And he's like happy to help me edit my copy, and he looked at it and has edited it with me and gave me feedback on the design. So just like finding someone you're working with who actually also cares about your personal brand is so important. And I also highly recommend building a personal website and figuring out exactly what your niche is and where you live and where those communities are. But going back quickly to networking for cold calls and cold outreach, the thing that I will say is, what is the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
Literally nothing. I can name 100,000 worse things in life than not receiving a response from someone, okay? Like probably receiving a no from someone you like in the dating scenario is worse than the networking, hands down. So I think, and also after you've all done your capstone, please do not tell me that you are scared about anything in life in terms of outreach, because that was the biggest confidence boost that I've ever gotten in life. I think this program really, really boosted my confidence. And if you work on talking alone to yourself in the mirror, in your apartment, pacing like I did, your presentations, you will feel confident, I promise. That's what I'll say. Keep a CRM for sure. If it's your notes app, if it's Google Sheets, Notion is a really great tool as well. I'm pretty sure it's free. Just as an individual to join, and just set up a CRM, remind yourself to follow up with people, send thank yous. That is huge. I've heard so many people I've talked to say how important it is, like how amazing it is just to receive a thank you, even as you continue in business and you're receiving clients. Just sending like, thank you for your time today makes a huge difference. And also having like a peer-to-peer buddy to keep you engaged during the process is going to be really daunting. So get together, go to some coffee shops in the city. There's a couple of really great ones, Bibliotech, Sui Yoga and Cafe down in the West Village, Soho area, Shakespeare and Co. Talk to people next to you. I've literally met such cool people recently just by being out in person and being with a friend or solo and just like sitting down for a couple of hours and like keeping your ears open. Like, what is that person doing? And someone was like working as a designer and he works at Gray Advertising and now we're LinkedIn friends. Like you literally never know where you're gonna meet someone. So I think utilizing the city as your networking space and just keep it being open.
We have just a few minutes to wrap up. So we're not gonna have time for questions, but I'm sure during our networking time, they would be happy to answer any questions, happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. So if there's any last thoughts you wanna share with us, a quick 30-second blurb of lasting advice that you wish you heard now is your time to instill it onto us.
Adding one more thing about reaching out to people. In PR, there's a thing called pitch, right? So when you're reaching out to people, you just prepare, pitch a template for your LinkedIn message and just change the name, literally the person's name, and send it to people. And just wait for them to get back to you. If needed, just follow up using another template. And for calls, I would say what's worse than calling people is having a client call you out of nowhere. But have a script, just like the pitch email, right? Have a script that you are ready to say to the person on the phone. Then you are going to feel comfortable.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything else to say?
I'll just mention one quick thing, since everything we've been talking about is outside of the classroom. I want to mention one thing in the classroom, which is please do your work. That is so important.
That's
Because it's, so we've heard it so many times that it trains our critical thinking, right? It trains our teamwork, and those are extremely useful in a work environment. But also, please do your work and like show yourself in the classroom so your classmates and professors don't forget about you. Right? Like this is, again, like going back to the connection, that you're gonna showcase yourself, make yourself an impressive individual in a classroom. And that is gonna help a lot.
Thank you all for sharing your insights. And
For our employer panel, we are gonna have a TAF who is a PRL member, like fabulous, have those students. And he's gonna be taking the Sydney role and interviewing the employers. So thank you very much for joining us. These two, by the way, also help plan the event. They run all the pre-planning calls. They help reach out to employers, to alumni, to did a fantastic. So nice to work with graduate students because you're all done already.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Sydney and the catalyst for the amazing panel we had before. And thank you all for being with us. We have one more panel to go. I'm going to be moderating the last panel. So we just heard from the employees. Now we're going to turn around to the employers and do the other side of the house. Maybe get like a nice meeting degree kind of thing. So if we can just, we have amazing employees, list of talent here. And they come from all different sectors from the industry. So we can just, I would love it if you can just like start off by introducing yourselves, give us a little bit about your background and what's your current role.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Wagner. I am the head of talent acquisition at Universal Music Group. I've been there for 5 years. My background's a little different. I kind of came from, I was in special needs education. Then I went into publishing, and then I moved into music. So, hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Shaman. I'm Director of Ad Sales and Partnerships at Big Little Media. We represent a number of podcasts and YouTube shows. Come from mostly a sports marketing background, but kind of stumbled into podcasting a few years ago and love it. So appreciate you guys all coming out to chat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Gross. I run business insights for subscriptions at Roku. My background, I'm originally from Canada. I have a technical degree. I have a degree in computer engineering. And then I went into consulting for 10 years with Ernst & Young. And then I've been running like strategy, operations, and analytics teams for the last 10 years. So I think as part of this panel, I can represent like a hiring manager's point of view.
Hi, my name is Gina Abatangelo. I'm a Senior Vice President of Brand Partnerships at Universal Music Group as well. I actually started in media and PR at Boston University, worked through a few different media companies, including Rolling Stone, realized I love music, and I made the transition into branded endorsement deals.
Nice. Christine Boyden, and I am the head of the Americas region for a company called Burson, which was the result of a merger last year between BCW and Hill & Knowlton. I started my career after an MBA working in venture capital, went to Silicon Valley in 1999 and fell in love with storytelling and getting companies off the ground in the early days. And often it was the story that really made or broke those companies. And did agency life with Edelman up until for 19 years, with my last job being head of the West. And then I couldn't resist going in-house on this crazy leap and became head of comms and marketing for a self-driving car company. Wild 3 years. And then couldn't resist when my old client of many moons, Corey DeBraua, said, hey, you want to try agency life again? And here I am a year later with the biggest merger in category history and having more professional fun than I've had in years. Excited to be here today.
There's so much in that. But Christine kind of just touched upon one of the first questions that I wanted to ask, which is about like navigating the in-house versus the agency life, like when you're like looking to hire, or what would be a few differentiators for you when you're like wanting to hire for someone in-house versus an agency?
Sure. Well, both have tremendous merit. I think, you know, listening to the panel earlier, wherever you can get that first job and that first break usually is a good place to start. But I think for earlier in your career, I loved the variety of agency because it felt like continuing education and the exposure of the various disciplines. It was like a continuous education of it, a survey course where you could dabble, try some things on, but you didn't have to commit to it for life. And that was really energizing for me. And I felt like I almost got my PhD in communications. In-house, you really get to go deep and really learn a category, learn whatever it is that is your craft that you're representing. And it's just a very, very different kind of role, but they both have merit. I'm better for both of them as a human leader practitioner. And I wouldn't trade either experience, but the variety, especially earlier in your career and trying on the various disciplines, is really powerful before you choose more of a specialty. But there's nothing like just owning a story and living that every day and being deeply passionate about it and bringing that to life and seeing your work come to life in ways that you can't when you're a counselor sometimes.
It's kind of like analogous to consulting and then going to industry.
Totally.
Yeah, very simple.
It's perfectly analogous.
Anyone want to add or share anything to that?
I, from my personal experience, did start a very small agency. I think, you know, to your point, got to touch multiple brands, even within the agency, worked in multiple functions, was kind of on the account management side for a bit, was also, you know, ostensibly the chief of staff and supported our founder in bringing in new business and driving, you know, new brands to work with us to represent them. So from that perspective, 100%. And also to your point, like there are large agencies, there's mid-sized agencies and really small ones where you can have different experiences at each. So really, you know, kind of depends on what you're looking for, but I do think, you know, not necessarily specializing early on, kind of maintaining a broad scope, especially early in your career. You know, that helped me understand. I didn't necessarily want to go down the account management side. I was more interested in sales. So I think it's all valid experiences, but you know, good either way.
So with a career in recruitment, what would we say are like kind of the best practices or like ways for people to differentiate themselves when they're like trying to apply for a job? What would you?
It's a loaded question because so last year, just to give you an example, just to give you an example, last year we filled 535 jobs at UMG and we had 91,000 applications throughout the year. So we were so in order to stand out, I think we kind of have to look at the basics, go back to the basics and really look at the people that don't stand out. So the ones that are, you know, applying for jobs that use a resume that have a completely different name at the top. So for example, Kyle Wagner, Sony Music Group, you know, and then it's like, well, you're applying at UMG. And then the formatting of resumes is so important. I think one thing that I always point out is if you're going to have a 5-page resume, no one's going to read it. So try condense that to 1 page, you know, at kind of more the junior level. And if you've been in the with a business for 10 years plus, move it over to 2 pages. And then honestly, it's just all about like knowing exactly what you want to do, because we have individuals that apply for 50 jobs and you have no idea as a recruiter, what do you want to do? Do you want to work in brand partnerships? Do you want to work in sync and licensing? Do you want to work in marketing or communications? So really trying to just be very clear and concise in your professional profile at the top of your resume to say, this is what I'm looking for, this is my experience in a condensed version. And it just gives us a better idea of, okay, I know they want to work in this kind of area of the business. So it's a loaded question because it's difficult to stand out in, you know, out of 91,000 people, but you can do it in kind of the simple ways.
What's your take on trying to find the hiring manager and going around the HR team and like trying to go on LinkedIn and saying, because as a hiring manager, if we have 500 applications for a role, if someone's reaching out directly to me and taking that initiative, like they definitely have a leg up.
So yeah, no, great question. And I'm sure this has happened, right? Like it's great because when we post a job on LinkedIn, for example, and they know that it's in brand partnerships, they're just going to go brand partnerships, Universal Music Group, and Gina's name is going to pop up. So they're going to immediately go directly to her, which is amazing. I think it shows initiative, it shows drive. And unfortunately, you know, for the hiring manager, they can get thousands too, right, of emails. So my suggestion is that, or my what I always say to my hiring managers is just pass those over to me and I'll manage them. But if anything stands out to you as a hiring manager, make that clear, and then I can probe on those when I'm interviewing.
I think personal connection still is a big factor for me. I don't always get follow-up emails after I interview a candidate. I still do enjoy a thank you note. To me, it just signals that you're actually interested, especially when we get hundreds of people reaching out on LinkedIn and different resumes coming across my desk, and somebody knows somebody, right? And I'm not really sure who people know and the connection, but I try to just interview as many people as possible. When we have an open role, I will always refer them back to Kyle. Can you please you know, just apply through the link as well, so we have everything running through the system properly. But any sort of anecdote, I have like students reach out to me, I went to BU, I know you went to BU. I think it does catch my attention in my inbox because a lot gets lost, honestly. I actually got my first job because I went back in to say hello to someone and brought a box of chocolates, and I got a call to come back in and interview, and I had a job the next day. So I graduated in, I think, Thanksgiving before my senior year. I had a job lined up just because I went in to say hi. So for me, personal touches don't matter a lot too.
I think that's part of the value of, you know, going to a graduate program like the ones that you guys are all in here at NYU. Leverage that network. I think that's probably just as much as everything you've learned in the classrooms as useful and as valuable, especially for landing those jobs early on.
Thank you. And we have just been joined by Leah from Bank of America.
Hi, everyone.
We just asked everybody to just give a brief introduction and just like talk a little bit about their background and their current roles. If you'd like to share anything.
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. So nice to meet you. I'm Leah Johnson. I lead communications for our retail banking business at Bank of America. I've been working in communications my entire career. Actually worked with Catherine at one point. She was our big boss at CVS Health. But prior to working at Bank of America, I was at L'Oreal, where I led communications for the consumer products division. So all of the mass market brands that you might find at your drugstore at CVS or Walmart or Target or anywhere like that. And I've spent my time working in retail for the most part, consumer, worked at Staples earlier on in my career, worked in technology at Microsoft. So it really runs the gamut. I have hopped around at different places. Catherine once told me that I can get a little restless. So this is like the panel for me because I love looking for jobs and I love helping people find jobs. So thank you so much for having me.
Michael, I noticed something in your LinkedIn that kind of got my attention that I really liked, where it was like, you said that you've done 10 years of, I don't know, like 10 years of analyzing, like you mentioned, like 10.
Like blocks, like,
yeah,
10 years of consulting,
yes.
10 years of strategy.
Exactly.
I'm trying to keep it really brief. 3 bullets and career in 3 bullets.
Yeah, I love that. I'm still figuring out my next 2 years, but I just wanted to know, like, when you're like looking to hire someone, would you rather have like someone like generalized at first or like specialized?
When you're what, sorry?
When you're trying to hire someone.
Yes.
Like, do you look for someone who's like generalized in like, the entire industry or
Yeah.
like specialized in one specific?
It's a really good question. I think that both offer something different. I think that if you specialize, and I hire a lot of specialists who are, you know, senior data scientists and head of, you know, analytics type people. I expect the technical skills to be table stakes. I expect you to have those technical skills. And so to differentiate yourself, you have to show how you obviously have to meet those technical requirements, but then how do you think differently, right? And so I think that even if you've got that kind of deep technical expertise, you need to show how you can think more generally. I think as a generalist, because I'm a generalist myself, sometimes you struggle to show your differentiation. So I think that nowadays with things moving so quickly, a generalist is good. I think that one thing that I'm good at is kind of like connecting the dots. So I think if you're a generalist, how do you kind of articulate how you bring the pieces together? I think that's probably useful, but I don't think one versus the other. Yeah.
Anybody have a preference?
I'd say early in your career, try to get, and you probably hear this often, try to get as much experience as you can. Spend time, if you're interested in executive communication, spend time doing that. Spend time doing media relations, because as you move up, at some point, you need to know it all across communications. And so I'd say just try to absorb as much as you can early on, and always, raise your hand for those assignments, even if they're not as popular, because it's going to open up other doors for you later down the road.
As an international student, I have to ask the question. With as a lot of you have worked in global companies or have history of working in global companies. So would you think as an international or an international organization with new immigration laws coming into place, how would that affect international students?
I mean, I would say it's really fluid right now. I mean, I think that to give any sort of one definitive answer would be really tricky. I do think that once you hit in a global multinational organization, internal mobility is often much easier than finding a path in another country and sponsorship cold. Right, that takes a very high degree of specialty, and that's going to happen more likely later in your career. But if you can find a path into a global multinational and really make the case as a high performer and showing your relevance and showing your cross-cultural expertise and ability to navigate, much better likelihood of being able to get those global experiences and sponsorship.
That's actually how I made my way to the US. So I'm Canadian. And then got my visa originally with Ernst & Young. I was working with them in Canada. That kind of got me into the US. That turned into a green card, and then recently got citizenship after almost 20 years.
And it happens on all sorts of levels. I was born in Tokyo, and my father was with IBM, and it was all sorts of transfers. So I had Japanese citizenship.
Right.
And I mean, there's just all sorts of ways in and around the world if you find those connections and these companies. And that's one of the benefits of a big global multinational. It can be a lifelong experience of those types of global travel, global assignments, secondments. That is a trade-off then with smaller boutiques or highly specialized or local firms or organizations. And you do a little bit of both.
Right. And you don't have to be in your role for 10 years before
No.
to be considered to be transferred. I was in my role at Condé Nast for 1.5 years, and they transferred me to New York. So it just depends on you and kind of how much, work you're putting into it. And if you express interest, why you're interested in living there and working there. And obviously if there's a job opportunity there, then go for it.
Where were you before the US?
So I'm South African, and then I moved to London. So South Africa was special needs education, then moved to London and worked in agency recruitment, and then moved to work at Condé Nast International, and then they transferred me to Condé Nast in New York. And then I was done reading magazines, so I moved. So I moved into music. Yeah, right.
Would you guys mind identifying current trends that I see in your specific industry that could help people wanting to get into that industry? You can start with whoever would like.
In general, a way to find a way into the company?
I know, just like emerging trends that you guys see in the industry that like you would want to be aware of or know.
Music is, I mean, as you guys know, everywhere. I think especially with TikTok now, it's changed immensely in the last few years. We put out sounds, not just songs anymore. It could be a 30-second snippet. We could be chopping a song up. We could be making something just for the platform. We could be taking it off, putting it on reels. We could be speeding it up, slowing it down. We've found a lot of actually talent and employees through what they've done as a creators on social media. We find our artists that way now. We find producers, we find music video directors, writers. It could be somebody even just putting together like a DJ mix, and maybe we'll sign them as a like digital marketing manager. Maybe they're not necessarily going to be an artist, right? So I think social media really is like one of the biggest tools. We've shifted a lot from old school marketing tactics with music. We don't do like, you know, multi-million-dollar music videos every day anymore. They get scrapped pretty quickly. And then we kind of have somebody like run out the door with an iPhone, like following, you know, a Jonas Brother somewhere random, you know, and I think that ends up being a lot more, I think just so many more eyeballs on it, and we get a lot more mileage out of it, and the artists can connect more with their fans. It feels more casual. So it's been interesting finding all forms of talent in that way.
I think when it comes to, you know, podcasting, YouTube, the kind of creator economy, it's just gotten so massive over the last couple of years. You know, for better or worse, no matter what side of the aisle you're on politically, like it had a major impact on this past election, you know, from the presidential election down to local elections. So within the kind of podcast and YouTube creator industry, there's so many different levels, so many different layers. You know, each individual podcast is part of a network or can be independent, but there are so many different people that make those things happen. The video editors, the you know, the social media managers, the data scientists who are working for some of the marketing agencies that represent a lot of these brands that are spending heavily in podcast marketing. There are just so many layers. You know, I kind of started within this a little over 2 years ago, and it's really been eye-opening. You know, there are agencies that are direct response focused that work with those brands that if you listen to podcasts, watch YouTube, you know, like that represent the BetterHelps, the Helixes, the Manscapes of the world. And then, you know, now those major holding companies are really starting to feed and lean into the creator economy, those digital first, you know, communication landscapes. So tons of different opportunities within that space. Again, like whether it is representing the actual podcast or representing brands that work in the space or somewhere in between, lots of opportunities there.
I would also say, sorry, just because dovetailing into this, media in the eyes of musicians has changed a lot too. The goal always used to be like the biggest late night talk shows, SNL, that was it. Now it's like, can you get me on Call Her Daddy, Hot Ones, all the podcasts, like who's there? Can we have like this amazing creator come backstage at my show? Can we do a surprise and delight? And I think that's a really big shift as well, because we really only used to focus on radio and those few major, you know, communication networks. And I think that's also another way in. I mean, anybody in this room really could find their way probably backstage now and get an interview pass and put together a really amazing piece of content that could go further than a night slot on Fallon, maybe.
And I would say, dovetailing on you, that's true for corporate America as well. It's not just musicians or talent or celebrity. Having a conversation today, you know, one of the top 10 CEOs in the world, let's say, and we're having a conversation about whether Trevor Noah's podcast is appropriate, right? And so like really thinking through the points, it's not just pop culture for pop culture. It is also, because of all the points mentioned, we have to, as corporate storytellers, also insert ourselves into the zeitgeist and pop culture to be relevant to new audiences and stakeholders. And it's no longer, you know, called the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. It really is getting into where those stakeholders live and read and consume content.
I couldn't agree more. And of course, the influencer community is a big part of that. Just today, we, coming from the finance world, we had a great meeting with an influencer named the Budgetnista, if anybody follows her on Instagram, and using her as a shepherd to tell our story and get our message out, because nobody else often wants to hear from a bank. They may want to hear from another leader. The other thing I would say too is Gen Z, and I think many of you in this room represent that population, are just skyrocketing in terms of interest from brands. How do we reach them? How do we think about them? So just popping into the cultural piece of Gen Zers and what they're up to is going to be super important in the years.
I think a company like Blackstone is a really interesting case study in that. Like they announced their, purchase of Jersey Mike's with their CEO, Steven Schwarzman, eating a Jersey Mike's, and they do some weird, it's kind of this stuffy, very corporate organization that, seems too disconnected from reality for anyone to really even know what they do. But they create these social media, videos that just allow a Gen Z marketing student to kind of get a better understanding and see that, social media is something these massive companies are leaning into, and even using their top executives as influencers in a sense.
I will put an asterisk on this. It has to be the right executive
Yeah.
who can do it well and be authentic. Otherwise, like the cringe factor is real, and like you could actually have it backfire. So big asterisk.
A lot of risk now, yeah.
How do you guys manage like that transition from, oh, okay, we can go get all these eyeballs on one show, and it's like, you just have to get that one, that late night, to now you've got all these little pieces you have to piece together. Like how
It's so much more conductor of the orchestra, right? Like it's yes and, but like how are you pulling like a red thread of message through and have it make sense? Like the Budgetista is like awesome because like representing a bank, going to where somebody would trust to hear budget advice.
Yeah, credibility from your peer or
And
somebody you follow.
transferring that in. I wouldn't put probably Brian Moynihan on, Hot Ones.
No, right. Probably. And I think it's also just, putting together like a few pieces of excellent content that you can just extend and market, I'll have to be careful more on YouTube here, but market the crap out of it.
Yeah.
So that you can get so much mileage out of this one asset from a video. How do you slice and dice that and use it across different channels? And we've done that quite a few times and gotten enormous mileage out of it. So,
When AI first started coming up, people were like, oh, it's gonna steal our jobs, it's gonna do whatever. But I feel like now people are more shifting towards AI is helping us do our jobs. So how would you think AI would help your specific industry?
I can jump in first, and specifically within analytics, I think it's a huge add today in this world. Sometimes if an executive wants a piece of information, right, they send out an email and somebody has to go and write complex SQL in a database and pull data just to get simple answers. I think there's AI agents out there coming that you can ask a question and it will search your data. It also, I think, it makes every person 3 times quicker. You can write emails quicker, you can write your SQL code quicker. So I think it's absolutely game changing. I would say to embrace it as much as you can, start to use it, learn it. But also there's this fine line. Don't come to rely on it. Don't lose your ability to communicate or to write emails and have this crutch. So especially as you're coming up, like those of us here on this panel, like we didn't have the option. We had to learn how to do that. I think you guys are going to have a lot more options and shortcuts you could take. You have to know when to use those shortcuts, but when not to use those shortcuts.
that's an excellent point. And it's interesting. I have a friend who is job searching right now, and she sent her resume over to XYZ company. And the company wrote back and said, your resume is filled with AI. We're not interested in you. So just keep that in mind as well, to your point, because people, can see right through it as well.
Yeah, and I would just feel I've come to really believe the AI is unlikely to take your job, but someone who knows your craft and knows how to use AI well may take your job, right? So trying to find what is relevant and specific to your use case, it is completely in the fabric of everything that we do today. I'll give you one example though of something that was so different when I started this industry, which was focus groups. And so now we're doing what we call synthetic focus groups, right? Where historically, if you wanted to do focus groups, that could have taken weeks, you know, a large research budget. And while there are trade-offs and you don't want to use a synthetic focus group for everything, you can also get some really good insights in really like a half an hour if you're really smart about it, that otherwise would have usually been a few months. So just like finding those applications and use cases, it's not the holy grail, but there's really interesting ways to accelerate what you're doing. Now, you still need to figure out and be really smart at your craft, how to apply those insights. Doesn't matter how good the insights are if you don't know how to turn it into a campaign that's relevant and reaching the right audiences.
Yeah, I think music especially is very interesting when it comes to AI, because we're talking about creative industry. We're talking about people's vocals, their images, their IP. I think that it's an incredible tool. I think to your point, I think it just has to be used very carefully, responsibly, at your own risk. You always have to check your work. I would not probably bank on on everything being right. I think for us, you know, it's an interesting time, because if you can take someone's vocals and make a song out of it, that's where we're like, okay, how do we protect our artists and their own voice? So I think there's going to be probably a lot of evolution and change over the next few years, but how it is super helpful is maybe data analytics. Fan data is huge, right? When we go to shows, who's actually buying the merch, who's actually gonna buy, you know, Taylor Swift's all 7 vinyls in every color. We wanna know, right? Who's actually walking into Target, purchasing the Wicked soundtrack party pack, you know, like, I think that's where it's very helpful for us, because we can get a really great snapshot of like, okay, this is exactly who our fan demo is. And sometimes it's all over the place, and that's also helpful. So I think sifting through, you know, comments and emotions and being able to scan through thousands of comments and get a very quick reaction of like, did this go well? Do people like this? Because I think we all have that fear when we launch a campaign now. In 10 seconds, you pretty much know everybody's running to the comment section to kind of see what other people are thinking. And you're like, did this launch okay? So I think, you know, as it relates to the creative industry, the music, I think it will take a bit longer. But I think it just depends what it's used for and used responsibly.
I remember you just said something that kind of reminded me, like, I think it's still going up till now. I think it was bigger a little while ago, where like a lot of people on Twitter would use AI to like take up a song from like, let's say Taylor Swift, and then like use AI to like have it sung by like somebody else. And I think that's very interesting, especially like with
So ever changing, ever evolving, but yes, you can do a lot, as you can see.
Yeah, and some of them are like really good, like you would not have
Yes,
told if
it's
AI or not.
incredible technology. Yes,
Yeah.
it's hard to discern what is maybe the artist and what is not, right? So that's a little bit of that dangerous place we're, you know, living in at the moment, with it being a gray area. So I think everything just has its time and its place.
Also, sorry, I was gonna say, as job hunters, it makes your job harder, because everybody's gonna use AI and they won't get caught. Not everybody's gonna get caught to have a really good resume.
Yeah.
Right? So one thing I think about as a hiring manager that I try, and also you'll be able to like do a lot of practice interviews and you'll get feedback from AI and you'll have your perfectly crafted answers. But everybody will, right? And so one thing as a hiring manager, I try to tease out of people is, well, what's the real you? Like, what's the real story here? I know you're well practiced and you should be well practiced and you should have your answers crafted, but I'm going to take you to a place where you don't have all of that, you know, in your pocket, in a sense, like to try to let your real true self out. And I would actually suggest that even if someone isn't doing that as an interviewer, that you try to do that as an interviewee and you make sure your true self comes out, because that's the only thing that's going to make you different now, right? When everybody's got these perfect tools to make their resumes great, to practice interviewing, to have all the canned questions perfectly answered.
Become very like textbook.
Yeah,
As you're in an interview and it seems like you're a robot. You're just like answering these questions that AI has given you. And I wanted to touch on that from a recruiting standpoint. AI is so interesting. And remember, AI, there's so many different elements of it. So from a recruiting standpoint, AI is embedded into a lot of recruiting tools that we have these days, like Phenom, and many others. I mean, you can Google them. to the point where AI will actually interview some candidates. So it'll be, and again, it takes away that kind of personal, relationship that you have with your recruiter. And it'll create candidate notes that are shared with hiring managers. So UMG is steering away from that for now. But to your point, it's just like you kind of lose a bit of yourself when you use AI. So really kind of take yourself back and be like, okay, if I got given this question, how would I answer it? You don't need to put it into a computer and get the perfect answer. And I say this to a lot of my candidates is they're like, well, why didn't I get the job? And the hiring manager, or why, I'll speak to the hiring manager and I'll say, why didn't this individual get the job? I thought they were great. And they're like, you know what it is? It's not even about the answers they give me, it's the rapport that they build with somebody. And it's like, I didn't see their personality. I'm like, oh, I did. I thought they were great. And they're like, no personality whatsoever. And it I kind of lost my train of thought there, but it's, sorry, my colleague just walked in, so. But you get my point, right?
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily an AI specific topic, but with COVID, we did shift a lot to Zoom, and I did a lot of Zoom interviews looking for new employees, and I always found that it was very difficult with the Zoom interviews. When I would meet them in person for the follow-ups, it was a very different vibe sometimes than I felt on the screen. And I would say, I know it's very hard, everybody's schedule. I even, as somebody searching for talent, it's a lot easier, right, and more convenient to say, can we just do a Zoom interview? But if you can fight for an in-person interview and you think you will do well, I would say, right, because if you think like, you're better in person, I do think it makes a very big difference. For me, we are in a people business, right? So you have to feel comfortable next to a superstar artist, in a room with executives, with any sort of family members that may walk in, the whole entourage. So it's really important, right? How you conduct yourself in person, socially. You could be amazing on paper, maybe in person, maybe it's not the right fit. Maybe that's not right for you either. So I think that is also important, right? On both sides of the fence. So I would just say, as we're using all of these like digital tools, and even though it is very easy to do Zoom interviews and AI interviews, try so hard to make the human connection and see if you can get in the building physically. It's stressful, right? Like I remember one time I was so late, like it's a lot. You got to get the security pass, you're waiting for an Uber, like the subway's not working, right? But it's kind of like all of those things. I think they're really important to that moment, right? When you're interviewing and meeting with a hiring manager, you have a little bit of something to talk about. Sometimes when I get on a Zoom interview, that's like, what's going on? Nothing, just, I don't know where you are in the world, trying to make small talk, but I think it helps drive that personal connection and maybe they'll remember you a little more.
I would just say, don't let AI think for you.
Yeah.
Think for yourself, make sure, use it as the assistant that it's kind of made to be. To kind of a few points made up here. If you're in an office setting, or even if you're working from home and your boss comes over to you or your boss calls you, you can't use AI to answer their questions, to, communicate with them. So definitely, I'm in sales, so I have to talk to people every day. You really need to be comfortable and be able to think for yourself. Leverage the tools to make your life a little easier, but also know how to do those processes, if AI fails, or if your boss is kind of looking over your shoulder and wants to make sure you actually know what you're doing. Very important.
You're not being fed AI right now.
Well, I'd like to segue into our final question before we open up for the audience. If you were just imagine yourself back to when you're starting your job search, what is kind of the piece of advice you would, the one piece of advice you would wanted someone to tell you before going into your professional career? And we can start off with Leah. If you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll say it's going to be a journey. But I firmly believe what is for you will not miss you. So any job that you get, even if it's not your dream job, it's going to lead you to something else. There's a succession of events that happen, and they all happen for a reason. I would say, as you're looking for a job, the one piece of advice I would give, use LinkedIn, do what I call mapping. So reach out to people on LinkedIn, you know, companies that you might be interested in, roles that you might be interested in, reach out to those people, send a quick email, almost as if you're writing a media pitch. Pull something that you saw in the news about this company or the person, and then use that as your hook to try to connect with them. And you'll be amazed how many people actually write you back. That's how I got one of my jobs, just through emailing someone cold on LinkedIn. So highly recommend that.
I would say feels appropriate being in a classroom. Do your homework.
Yeah.
You would be shocked at how many people will get on a call and be like, what do you do for the firm? And you're like, I'm the CEO. You know, like there are moments, right, where you're like, well, that I might as well hang up. There's no way. I don't care if you are a genius level, you know, in whatever it is that is your craft, you're not being hired. But like really taking the time to do the homework, do the basics, show up, shake hands firmly, look at somebody in the eye, know what they've been working on, know their career path. LinkedIn, it takes 5 minutes to be like, I saw this campaign you worked on. It must have been so exciting. What about this element? Anything that shows that you are paying attention, that you are invested in the outcome, and then follow up. And follow up with something specific, not, hey, thanks. I really enjoyed this point that you made. I've been thinking about it and I thought that this might be relevant to you. Anything that shows that personalization, investment, and commitment to the time that you spent together will really pay off in an ROI that will set you apart.
For me, I grew up in a very tiny town. I graduated with like 100 kids. I
Me
had
too.
no idea, no idea what was like even available. Music business was absolutely not on my radar. I went to BU, I knew nobody there. And I started the first day and everyone there had already had internships. And I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I've never had an internship. I've got to get on this. I will say that I don't know how much I actually learned in the classroom, but the environment and the people around me, that was a huge influence. It propelled me, it made me, okay, I have to do what everybody else is doing and my peers. And I just basically tried to find someone at every single internship and just foster the relationships as best I could. And when they kept giving me new opportunities within the same company. I actually interned for one company 6 times in all different offices because they had different magazines in different states. And then a little bit at Conde and in Vogue in Madrid. And they would call me at Bloomberg because it was in the same building to help them translate emails into English. So I just basically took every single call. I helped every person I could. I stayed in touch with them. And I tried to find the best person to like hang my hat on basically and say like, I will help you with whatever you need. So coffee, emails, shipping things, and I still do a lot of that stuff, by the way. As an SVP, I'm still in Coachella backstage, like pulling boxes,
It doesn't
like.
get more glamorous.
No, it has its moments, but listen, there's a lot of technical difficulties in music, somebody's got to fix everything. But I would just say that those people are how I ended up actually getting my first job and then being promoted all the way up from an assistant to a senior vice president with the same exact team. So over the past like 10 years. So I would just say no connection is too small. You absolutely never know who it could come from. It could be a next door neighbor, somebody, you intern with, or maybe like a family friend. But if you don't have that, just go into every class, every internship, your professors, anyone, a mentor, seek out mentors. You'd be surprised. I think people are very flattered when, you get the request for mentorship. You could think, oh, this person doesn't have time for me. But there's still always that really like, oh, somebody wants me to mentor them, or somebody wants me to come speak somewhere, And I think it's really important just to try to just make a name for yourself, but just build your reputation, like credibility, trustworthiness. You're a hustler, you're gonna always be there, always answer, and I think that's, I don't know, for me, that was the big differentiator.
I have 2 things. Playing off what you guys said, I think one big thing is if something feels uncomfortable, lean into it. Like that's probably what you should be doing, right? So if it's awkward to like randomly reach out to someone on LinkedIn, like, and that feel like you're like, oh, that would be interesting, but that's too weird, like do it. Like, don't hesitate to lean into that discomfort and do things that are awkward and weird, and that's how you will build these connections. Like, that's not natural for anyone. And so whatever it is, and again, to your point too, like whether that's doing more, reaching out to people or networking, yeah, if something feels uncomfortable, I think that's a good sign. You should be doing more of it. The second piece is while you're earlier on, if you have the ability to take some risks, and whether that's go to an agency or go to Silicon Valley, do it, while you're earlier in your career. As life goes on, responsibilities become bigger, right? So if you can do it now, now's the time to do it. So I would say, if you can, take some risks, and I think that will pay dividends in the long run.
It's actually something I saw on LinkedIn a few weeks ago. I'm always on LinkedIn, super important. But Jack Settleman, who's the founder of Snapback Sports, said something, kind of paraphrasing, but basically it was like, if you're in interviews, if you're reaching out to people, don't ask like, what do you need help on? What can I help you with? Where are, there are kind of areas within your company that are light. Be solution oriented. Say, hey, I noticed you did this. Obviously be respectful and balance it out, but come with solutions. I saw you're doing this on social media. Here's how, maybe you can do it a little better. These are things I've seen. Yeah, very solution oriented. We'll get you also noticed, one of the questions earlier. And I think similar to what, kind of quadrupling down, relationships are so important. Personally, every job that I've gotten has been through a relationship. I haven't just cold applied and gotten a job. It's always been, I know someone who is working at a company. I've been recommended by someone who I used to work for. I think all of that is kind of feeds into, make good impressions, continue to remain in communication with those mentors that you've developed, with your peers, with people below you, at internships and whatnot. Relationships are so important in the world in general. So continue to nurture those and make sure you're doing it the right way. Check in with people, touch base with them on a relatively consistent basis. And then, but don't always ask for something. When you do need that favor, that's when, building that relationship, all the groundwork that you've done, will pay off in the long run. So yeah, relationships, solution oriented. I would also say just like be very selfless in the early part of your career, experience different things, always stick your, put your hand up to try something new to help out. First off, you might discover something that you're really interested in and have a total career shift, total change of mind, but also it just shows everyone that like this person is accountable, this person is responsible, is a really hard worker.
So I'm going to answer this question from a recruiter's perspective. So, and this may seem very basic to a lot of people, but like be professional and presentable. So like nowadays, majority of interviews are happening via Zoom, right? That's like a first stage interview. And I cannot tell you the amount of times where people are either wearing their pajamas, they have the washing machine going through in the background, they haven't made sure that their tech is sorted, the camera's off. So just be professional and presentable. And I guess that goes also for like your resume, right? Keep it concise, keep it clear, standard format, or clean format. And remember, your resume is like that first selling point, right? They haven't even met this individual, and you kind of need to show yourself through your resume, and then you're going to bring it to life when you're in that interview. So that's kind of your first opportunity. So they're all just important things to make sure you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been amazing. We do still have a little bit of time left, so we're gonna open to questions. If anybody has any questions.
Good, I have one. Hi, I'm Jack. Met some of you guys already. Really awesome meeting you. But my biggest question was, for looking to candidates, I know you guys emphasize the whole hiring about personality, but how do you differentiate personality versus like fun professionalism, and like where does that line, where you cross over that line? It's like.
That's a tough one. I mean, I think it's just feeling out the situation, right? I think especially for we work in a building where we actually have artists in and out all day long. So I think it can be super tempting, right? To maybe see somebody walking past you, want to maybe get a snap a photo or take a photograph, right? that's something that it's an immediate indicator to me that it's not gonna work out, right? We have many employees on our staff who are super fans of our artists, but they're pretty careful about it. They do their best to kind of like, you know, keep everything separated. It's an interesting time now because we do have people that have major TikTok followings, and actually my own assistant, she had to like disable her account. I didn't tell her to do it. I think she just knew it was the right thing to do, because she was being followed basically by followers, like knew where she was. They kind of had a sense that like where she was, maybe artists would be. You know, it's a crazy time with, you know, Instagram, everybody can kind of track you. I think just feeling out the situation for us, for me specifically, because like you really never know who somebody is. Somebody can be like walking by in a baseball cap and you'll realize like it's the manager of like Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
Somebody like that. So it's really interesting. So I think it's just kind of knowing time and place, feeling it out, being respectful, waiting for when your time is supposed to be. And you can always feel free to ask a question and just be like, is it okay if I wait here? You know, I think just communication, more is more, understanding the boundaries. If somebody's saying to you, please come over here, meet this person, I think that's like appropriate in that well. But I think, yeah, I mean, in music, I can't speak for everyone else. Like, I don't care really what you wear when you walk in, as long as like you're clothed. But I think like expression is amazing. Like, you know, piercings, like different color hair, amazing fashion, like that's what music's all about. I don't think that's maybe the same for everyone here, but that's what I would say.
I also think there's like, just kind of came up 3 C's that you can follow. So like being confident in how you're presenting yourself and your abilities and what you've done, but also showing that you can be coachable. Especially early in your career, you don't know everything, you're not gonna know anything, even at the end of your career, you probably shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. So, you know, show that you're confident, but are also coachable. And then at the same time, adding some validity, show that you're confident, that you know what you're doing, that you can learn on the fly. So yeah, I think that kind of teeters the line where you're showing your personality, showing your confidence, you know that you can continue to learn on the job, but that you can kind of step in and hit the ground running.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm just wondering, what do you think is the strength of a recent graduate or someone who's applying for an entry-level job? And how do we highlight our strength?
What is the strength or?
Yeah, what is the strength of a recent graduate? Because I sometimes feel like as like someone who's applying for an entry-level job, I don't feel like I can bring a lot to the table. So what do you think is our strength and how should we highlight?
Well, I think you are the strength, right? It's like you're the one that so many people can do that job, but you're the one that has to, again, kind of, you have to stand out for all of these people. So how are you going to do that as an individual? Like if I look at all these resumes, they're all kind of going to look very similar, let's be honest. So what are you going to do? And it kind of goes back to our points earlier, like have you done research on the individual that you're meeting with? Why do you want to work for this particular company? What's interesting about this company? Is it just because you want a job? No one wants to feel like you just want the job because it's a job and it's a stepping stone. You want to make them feel like this is going to be your home for a period of time. So so that's a huge kind of that would be some advice to share with you. It's like just be yourself, stand out from the others by doing your research. And that was the point I was going to make earlier. So the whole AI thing, it just pops into my head, but I'm not going to waste anyone's time. Sorry. And so yeah, so just sell yourself in a way of like, you've done your research, you know what the hiring manager does, you know what this job is going to be doing. So you've maybe even gone on LinkedIn and be like, oh, this person's actually doing the job that I want to do. Like, what are they doing? What are their day-to-days? And then sharing that during the interview process.
I think also you have a huge edge in your intellectual curiosity. It shows that, right? So you're coming out of, you decided to go get even more educated because you wanted to learn more. I think there's a huge amount of intellectual curiosity. So I think that's really important. And I think you're also the future leaders, right? So it's a bargain right now hiring you guys right out of school because we know we're hiring the best and brightest who will be leading these companies in the future. So I think you can go in with confidence with that.
I think you can also lean into whatever your differences are, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much power in, I was, listening to the earlier panel. multiple languages? Where have you lived? What are your insights because you are a native of the current media culture? What are you following? What are you nerdy about? Like, what are you proudly nerdy about? And there's so much reverse mentorship that also happens in corporate life these days where like, no, let me tell you my perspective and what I'm doing on TikTok with my friends at this moment that may be relevant to the brands that I'm going to represent or support or the organization. And then sometimes it just comes down to really showing your character traits. Like I was never the smartest or the best at, most things, but I could outwork just about anybody. And I was incredibly resilient and I didn't see anything that was a task above me. Similar to you, like I was gonna out hustle. Like I moved from Tokyo at 6 to a beef cattle ranch and like in tiny town, rural America. And like, you do every job when you're in that kind of world, right? And you're going to fight and earn your keep and outwork somebody who is going to be arrogant or precious or say, I just do this thing over here. So like just finding what are those things that distinguish you that are true about you, because you can't fake that, and lean into that identity and that commitment to that identity and great work.
Yeah, I would echo what you said. Just be a hustler. You have to. I'm one of the original hustlers. It looks like I've got a group here too. You have to work hard. You have to have the grit. You have to show your passion, whatever that might be. And just don't stop because you have the energy right now to do that. And people are looking for that in general. They want to see that you can just stretch yourself and you're willing to learn. And by showing that openness, it's just going to beget more opportunities for you.
We have time for one more question. Go.
Thanks. I wanted to ask, like, how much of a weightage does being an international student play, like, in your resume, when you tick that, oh, yes, I'm going to need a sponsorship maybe in the future? And also, what would be your advice for us as international students? Because obviously everyone else has, like, a little bit of more advantage over us. As recruiters, how do you all look at it? What advice would you have for us?
Don't look at me. I feel like I'm speaking over.
I mean, we have a massive global market and focus. Sometimes it starts with the territories. Sometimes it starts here in New York. More and more is moving to New York. I'm working across global territories more than I ever did before. Technology obviously has helped with that. And our artists have like way more interest in traveling the world. And I'm sure you've seen someone in Australia doing sold out shows, which is, we couldn't get to Australia for a long time. So that's new. But I think if you can get your foot in the door interning, again, just making those connections. I think we talked about this before. It's much easier once you're kind of in somewhere and starting to have those conversations and find someone that can help fight for you. I've fought for a lot of talent on my team. Sometimes they maybe had other jobs and to navigate that, right? Because you don't necessarily want to steal somebody else's employee, but I don't know that necessarily will work in your case that you're speaking about, but I think the more people you can get in your corner, more people you can kind of like have you help with that discussion. I think the earlier, the better.
I would just build on that. Sometimes it's also finding a way to make that international status relevant. So working on a client that is based in your home country, in your home language, and where you can be a cross-cultural connector and offer perspective as well as occasionally translation,
1000%.
right?
Yeah.
Understanding of that local media, especially like if that's a headquarters or they're trying to export a brand, so on, or either way. Just trying to instead apologize for it, like lean into it, own it, and make it relevant to your ability to do a great job and an even better job than somebody who doesn't have that experience.
That's a good point. Like recently I was tasked to recruit a specialist in K-pop. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. So I did all of my research and everything and sourced on LinkedIn, and we couldn't actually find somebody in New York and really in the States at the level that we needed. And we ended up going to Japan, right? And so to your point, like make it relevant, and then who knows, that opportunity can come from anywhere and any place.
Thank you guys.
Well, thank you guys so much for your meeting.
you.